2024 for the prelim exam for Gauteng province. All right, so the paper is a 3-hour paper out of 150 marks. The instructions are the usual ones, where all answers or where all questions have to be answered. And in this case, we have 12 questions. Rounding off must be 2 decimals unless the question tells you otherwise. You need to write legibly. We shall try. Okay. Question number 1. With this question, they're telling us that if we are given 2k is equal to x minus 5 and then x minus k, determine the value of k if x is a 2. Okay, so what we're going to do, what we're going to start with is replace x with a 2. Okay, if we replace x with a 2, what this is going to give us is 2k is equal to, that's going to be 2 minus 5, which is a negative 3, into 2 minus k. Let's open up this. So our 2k here should be negative 3 times a 2, that's negative 6, negative 3 and negative k, that gives us a 3k. Then we can do the transposition. I can move the 3k that side, so that I have a negative k is equal to negative 6, which means k is going to be just a 6. All right, so that is just the first part. Then they want us to get x if k is a 2, this 4 marks. Okay. Where there is k, let's put a 2. So that's going to be 2 by 2, which is a 4, is equal to x minus 5 into x minus 2. Let's open this and form a quadratic. So 4 is equal to, that is x squared minus 2x. This and that is minus 5x. That's plus 10. If I simplify this further and move the 4 that side, it's going to give me x squared minus 7x plus a 6, should give us a 0. Okay, factorize this. We have x minus 6. What went wrong? Let's fix that. We're saying x minus 6 and then x minus 1. Because when I open, I'll get that same thing. So either x is a 6 or x is a 1. So those are the values or the answers for 1.1.2. Then 1.2.1, they want us to solve this and give our answers to decimal places. So the first thing we have to do is create a standard equation where we have to move the 8 that side. So it's going to be 2x squared minus 8x plus 3 must give us a 0. Let me do it this side. It's 2x squared. Okay, so we're saying it's a 2x squared minus 8x plus 3 must give us a 0. So remember we said whenever we have a condition of 2 decimals, we automatically have to use the quadratic formula, which is a negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. When we do the substitution, that's going to be negative and negative 8 plus minus the square root of negative 8 squared minus 4. Our a is a 2, then our b is a 3. All of this is divided by 2 times 2. If I simplify further, 8 plus minus, that's going to give me 64. Then we know that this is 8 times 3 is 24. So 64 minus 24, which gives us a 40. Okay, over 4. So if I punch this into my calculator, the fraction is saying 8 plus root 40, okay, over 2. 8 plus root 40 over 2. What happened? Okay, that's going to be 3,58. Oh, so that's going to be the first x. Then when I use the minus, that's going to be 8 minus root of 40. Then dividing by 4, which is 0,42. All right, so that is 1.2.1. Then 1.2.2, we have a side. So step number 1, we have to move the 10 to that side before you can square either sides. But I'll also opt to open up the brackets. So I'll say square root of 2x plus 20 is equal to x. When I move this 10 that side, it's going to be a positive, so it's going to be x minus 2. And then from that step, let me just have it this side. We have to square both sides of the equal sign so that we get rid of the square root sign. That is 2x plus 20. We said it's x minus 2. All right, then what we're going to do, we're going to square both sides. We said this squared, and then that side is also squared. So the root sign is killed. We have 2x plus 20 is equal to x squared minus 4x plus 2. Let's transpose and collect the like terms. That's going to be x squared minus 6x. I move the 20 that side. I'll end up with minus 18 is equal to 0. All right. So, oh, this is a 4, not a 2. Sorry. If that is a 4, then this is going to be a 16. Okay, then I'll have to factor this out. That's going to be x. This is a negative 16. Can use 8 and 2. Can put this to be a negative and a positive. Okay, so when I solve this, my x is going to be 8, or x is going to be negative 2. But remember, the original question was the square root of 2x plus 20 minus 10 should give us x minus 12. So we need to test these values of ours. So if I use 8, we know that 2 times 8 is 16 plus 20, that's a 36. Square root of 36 is 6. Minus 10, I get a negative 4. Then if I get 8 minus 12, I get a negative 4, which means this 8 is correct. Let's try to use negative 2. So negative 2 times 2 is a 20. Is that's a 4 plus 20. That becomes square root of 24 minus 10. On the right-hand side, it's negative 2 minus that, which gives us negative 16. So those are two different values. So I'll cross this out, or I'll say the solution does not apply. All right, so that is 1.2.2. Then 1.2.3, we have this inequality for 2 marks. So it's more like a dot product. So we can say that 3 to the x is less 0, or x minus 5 should be less 0. So in the study of exponents, we do not have a scenario where anything is raised to another exponent or power and then it gives us a 0. So there is no solution in this case for this option here. And then if we are to solve that, which means our x has to be less than 5. All right, then 1.3. 1.3, solve the following equations simultaneously. So I'll just write this on the plain page. We have the square root, because I need more space. Okay, square root of 3 to the x. You're multiplying it by 9 to the y. And it's giving us 27. Other equation is x plus 4y squared. This gives us a 6. All right, so between the two, we need to make something the subject. So if this is our equation 1, and this is equation 2. Let me just play around with this, change the root sign into an exponent. That's going to be x. The exponent is going to be x over 2, so it's going to be 3 x over 2, or half x. I'm multiplying by, let me change the 9 to a base of 3. That's 3 squared is equal to, let's change this to 3 cubed. These are products, and we know that from the laws of exponents, when you're multiplying numbers with the same bases, we must add up the exponents. So it's going to be 3x over 2 plus 2y. It gives me that's 3 to the x. Now the bases are the same, they can be dropped, so that our focus is just on the exponents. So x over 2 plus 2y is giving us a 3. Okay, so we've dropped the bases since they are identical. Then from this, we can multiply through by 2. Let's get rid of that 2. Okay, so that's going to be x plus 4y is equal to 6. Let's move the 4 to that side, which means x is 6 minus 4y. Let me call this my equation number 3. Then I'll come down and say I have to substitute equation 3 into equation number 2. So where there is x, I'll just put that. So I'll have 6 minus 4y plus 4y squared is equal to 6. So since the 6 and the 6 are positive, we'll just cancel out. Or if we move it, that side is going to be 6 minus 6, which is a 0. Which means I'm left with 4y squared minus a 4y, giving me a 0. Take out what is common, which is the 4y. I have y minus 1. So either 4y is a 0 or y minus 1 is a 0, which means y should be a 0 or y should be a 1. If that is true, then we just need to get the values of x by substituting into equation 3 to get x. So that is 6 minus 4 times 0, which is a 6. Or the x here is going to be 6 minus 4 times 1, which is a 2. So those will be the solutions for that particular simultaneous question. All right, 1.4, solutions of the quadratic are given below. X is this, okay. State the value of values of p for which the equation will have 2 equal solutions. So with 2 equal solutions, remember, we know that the discriminant, which is given as b squared minus 4ac, must have the properties that determine the nature of the roots. So for as long as the discriminant is equal to 0, then that's when we shall have 2 solutions that have equal value, okay, equal magnitude. So we know that this p squared minus 4ac is represented by the 2p plus 5. So we shall say 2p plus 5 is equivalent to 0, and then we solve that. So which means our p is going to be negative 5 over 2. And then for non-real solutions, the discriminant must be less than 0. So it's just the same thing. So which means p is less than negative 5 over 2. I mean, we equated it to 0 there, and then just get that. Okay, or you can say 2p plus 5 is less than 0, and then you solve. Same story. So that is question number 1. Question number 2. Telling us that the quadratic sequence of 0, 5, 14, and so on, and then the last term is 8, 16. They want us to get the 4th term. So we need to find out that we are adding just 5. We are adding a 9. And then when we look at this, there's an addition of a 4, which means we can add a 4 there. We get a 13, and then 14 plus 13, that gives us a 27. So T4 is 27. Okay, so if T4 is a 27, 2.1.2, they want us to find the Tn, the nth term of the quadratic. So what we do, let me just jot this whole thing that side so that I have space. Okay, so this is 2.1.2. We said 0, 5, what was the other one? 14, now we have a 27. And then we have 860. Good. So we say that was a 5, that was a 9, this was a 4. So 2a is equal to 4, okay, which means our a is a 2. Then 3a plus b must give us a 5. Let's replace a with a 2, which means B is going to be a -1, because that will be 3 times 2 is 6. Transpose the 6 to that side, then you get a -1. Then our A plus B plus C must give us this 0. Our A is a 2. Our B is -1. We're looking for C. Must get a 0. So 2 minus 1 is a 1. Remove it that side, which means C is also -1. So our Tn becomes 2n squared minus n minus 1. So that is 2.1.2. Let's look at 2.1.3. Calculate the number of terms in the sequence. So for the number of terms, we look at the last term, which we have as 860. So our Tn is 860. We're looking for n. So that's going to be 860 is equal to 2n squared minus n minus 1. Let's move everything to one side of the equal signs. Okay. So that's going to be 2n squared minus n minus 861 is equal to 0. Then we can use our quadratic, negative b plus minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. When I do my substitution, negative and -1, that is square root of -1 squared minus 4. Our a is a 2. Our c is -861 divided by 2 by 2. All right, so if I punch this into my calculator, this is 1. I'll say plus 8 times 861 over 4. I'm getting -20.5 as my first solution for n. And then if I replace with a plus sign, I'm getting a 21. So n is 20.5 or n is a 21. But now, since we're talking about the number of terms, they can never be in fraction form and they can never be negative. So this is not applicable, the first solution. Therefore, we have 21 terms. All right, so that is how that question would have been worked out. Then they want us to look at the sum of whole numbers between 100 and 1,000, which are divisible by 11. Now, we need to start by getting these numbers that are divisible by 11, for as long as they are between 100 and 1,000. So in other words, we need to look for multiples of 11 between this interval. Definitely, we know that, I don't know, it's going to be an arithmetic, and our D must be 11. So if we have 11 times 9, we would get a 99. But they said it's between 100 and that, so 99 cannot apply. What about 11 times 10? Which means our first term must be 110. Then 11 times 11, which is 121. 11 times 12, we get 132, and so on and so forth. How about 11 times 100? 11 times 100, we get 1.1, which is greater than the 1,000 that they need. I need to look for the last term at least to be on a safe side. Say that's 100. What about 11 times 99? What do we get? So 11 times 99. No, it doesn't make sense, because I'm going to get 1,089, which is still out of my range of interest. How about 11 times 98 is still out of range. You said 11 times 90. I think that would be the perfect one. 11 times 90. Okay. So 11 times 90, what are we getting? Let's see, 11 times 90, I'm getting 990. Because now if I say 11 times 91, then I'm getting an extra 1, 1001. So which means my last term is going to be 990. With all of this, we know that the common difference is 11 since they are multiples of 11. So our A is 110, our D is 11. But we don't know how many terms they are in this sequence or this pattern. So let's start by getting that and say Tn is equal to A, n minus 1 into D. So 990 is equal to 110 plus n minus 1 multiplied by 11. Let me use something red. Okay, so when we move that aside, it's going to give us 880. Going to divide it by 11 so that I have n minus 1. I divide 880 divided by 11. I end up with 80. And then when I plus 1, I end up with 81 terms that we're dealing with. Then I'll come down and then determine the sum using the arithmetic sequence formula for the sum. So we know that Sn is given as n over 2 into, let me use this one, a plus l, since I already have the last term. So that's going to be 81 divided by 2. Our first term was 110. Then our last term is 990. Okay, punching that into my calculator. That's 110 plus 990, which gives me 44550. Alternatively, you can use your 81 over 2 into 2a, which is 2 times 110, plus 81 minus 1, which is 80 multiplied by 11. Let me just confirm that we have the same answer, 2 times 110. Okay, we're saying plus 80 times 11. Oh, why am I getting something different? What is the formula? We said n over 2 into 2a plus n minus 1 into d. We said it's 81 over 2. Brackets, 2 times our a was 110 plus, that's going to be 80 times 11. Yeah, we end up with the same answer, which is 44550. If you substitute there. All right. So that has been confirmed. Then 2 point, oh, that's question 2. That is question 2. Okay, question 3, they are telling us given the geometric sequence, we have 8 into x minus 2 squared, and then 4x minus 2 cubed, and the story continues. They want us to determine the values of x for which the sequence converges. So one thing we need to know is that for a sequence to converge, the condition of -1 less r less 1 must be met. So what we need to identify first of all is the common ratio. So let me write it down here. So if I have my 4 into x minus 2 to the 3 over 8 into x minus 2 squared. So which means my common ratio is just going to be x minus 2 over 2. And then this is what I must substitute there. So I'll have -1, -1 okay, is less x minus 2 over 2 is less 1. So start by multiplying through by 2. Okay, so that's going to give us negative 2 is less x minus 2 is less 2. And let's transpose the 2 on either side. So when this 2 goes that side, I'll be left with a 0 is less x is less 4. So those are the values of x for which that sequence is going to converge. So 0 less x, and then less 4. Then if x is 2, 5, they want us to get the sum to infinity. So let's start by substituting so that we get our r. That's 2, 5 minus 2 over 2. That is 0,025. That's what I'm looking at. 2, 5 minus 2. Then divide by 2. Yeah, 0,25. Then we know that sum to infinity is given as a over 1 minus r. Let's get our a. If we have 2, 5 minus 2, that's going to be 0,5 squared. So 8 times 0,5 squared gives us a 2. So our a is a 2. And then our r is 0,25. All right. So what we're going to do, is just substitute a is a 2 over 1 minus 0,25, which is a 2 over 3 over 4, which is the same as 8 over 3, or you can give it as 2,667. So that will be the sum to infinity. Then 3.2, how many terms are there in this series? So this is a sigma. So starting from 3, the maximum point is a 12. So for us to get the number of terms, shall get the upper limit minus the lower limit plus 1. So it's 12 minus 3 plus 1, which means we have 10 terms. Then calculate the sum of the series. So by virtue of the formation that we have an exponent, it could be a geometric, but let's not let's not take chances. Let's start by substituting and we see. So if k is a 3 here, then we're going to have 3 times negative 2, which is a negative 6. Then if k is a 4, that's 4 squared, that's negative 2 squared, which is positive 4. 4 times 3, which is a 12. And then when k is a 5, that's going to be negative 8 times 3, which is a negative 24. So when I look at this, it's like we are multiplying with a negative 2. So which means, so our common ratio is a negative 2, which means this is a geometric. And our a is a negative 6. So we know that from a geometric sequence or series, the formula for the sum is a into 1 minus r to the n over 1 minus r. Or you can alternatively use the other one of r minus 1, which is rn minus 1, or r minus 1. Whichever format you want, you'll still get the same answer. So our a is negative 6, open brackets, 1 minus, we said negative 2 to the 10 terms over 1 minus, we said minus 2. All right, so when we simplify this further, if we simplify this further, we have negative 6 into what we get by the brackets, 1 minus, say negative 2 to the 10. That's going to give us a negative 1023. We're dividing it by 3. So when I punch this into the calculator straight away, okay, so punching that in the calculator, I end up with 2046 as my sum for the series. All right, so that is question 3. We move on. Question 4. They're telling us that the graph of f is given as x squared, where x is less or equal to 0 is sketched below. So this is a restricted function. We have this point that lies on the graph. They want us to get the value of a. So we know that that is the x, and then that's the y. Let's do the substitutions. So the substitution is going to be negative 8 is equal to a into negative 6 squared. So negative 8 is equal to 36a, which means our a is negative 8 over 36. And that's what I'm getting. Then 4.2, they want us to get the inverse in the form of y. So with inverse, let me just write like that, so that it's a y is equal to negative 8 over 36 x squared. We switch x and y. So that's going to be, let me not rush to put the y there. Let me start by putting the x is equal to negative 8 over 36, but y squared. Move all this that side. So it's going to be negative 36 over 8x is equal to y squared, and then find the square root. You can also simplify, because I'm seeing that there's something that can break down, which is like a 12 over 9. Which means this could also be negative 12 over 9. Okay? And then when we simplify that, it's going to give us negative 9 over 2. Okay, so it's going to be negative 9 over 2 is equal to y squared. Then we find the square root. So which means this x, the hash. So which means our y is the square root of negative 9 over 2x. And then we must give a condition that x must be less or equal to 0. The same restriction that we had for the parent graph should be maintained. Okay, so that is 4.2. And then they want us to write the range of the inverse. So let's look at the domain of the original function. The domain of the original function is that x was less than 0. In other words, it's on the negative side of the y-axis. So which means even the range of this function should be the same thing. Y must be less or equal to 0. So y, we're saying y must be less or equal to 0. What's going on? What is going on? So we said y is less or equal to 0. Okay, then they want us to sketch and indicate the coordinates other than that different from 0, 0. So we know that for as long as it is the inverse, just play around with. So we know that the 0, 0 will maintain, because 0 for x will be the same as 0 for y. Then this point here, if this point is a negative 6, and that's a negative 8, it's going to switch. So the negative 8 is going to be there, and maybe the negative 6 is going to be somewhere here. So which means we're going to have a graph in this format. Sorry, it's not that perfect, but that's the kind of shape. Let's redo that again. So it's saying negative 8 and a 6. And then we just join. So something of that nature. So this is the inverse. All right, then that is true. Then 4.5, they're telling us the graph of f is reflected about the line y is equal to x. Now, the moment this reflection takes place, then we have our inverse, which is this. And then thereafter, it is reflected across the x-axis. Now, reflecting about the x-axis, the value of the y must change. So which means this function becomes a negative. So negative square root of negative 9 over 2 with x. X must be less than 0. So that is what we have for question 4. Then question number 5. Question number 5, they're telling us that we have a point P in the Cartesian, and then they want us to get the image points if this point is rotated about the origin 90 degrees clockwise. So 2 root 3, let's assume it's somewhere there in the first quadrant. And then they want us to rotate it 90 degrees and clockwise, which means we're moving in that direction, which means it's going to be somewhere there. So if it was a 2 root 3. In this case, the points are going to change. Okay. What was x going to become a y, and then what was y is going to become the x. And that's going to be negative root 3 and a 2. That is if we are rotating that point 90 degrees anti-clockwise. Okay, so that is 5.1. Then 5.2. The graph of h of x is a to the x. Negative 1.5 is a point, the graph h. Can we substantiate? We must give reasons why the coordinates of q are 0 and 1. Okay, so one thing we need to know is that we can say that q is the y-intercept, okay? Is a y-intercept where x is a 0. And then any number raised to the exponent of x, or any number raised to the exponent of 0, always gives us a 1. Can just put it in simple words. So any point raised to the exponent of 1 will always be a 0, or q is the y-intercept where x is a 0, or no, I said y-intercept, yeah, where x is a 0. So anything that would make sense around x being a 0 and then raised to the exponent to give you a 1. And then there is no asymptote. Now the asymptote that side is a 0, so there won't be any interference. Then they want us to get the coordinates or the value of a. So with the value of a, we just need to do the substitution. Where there is x, we put this. Where there is y, we put that. So it's going to be a half is equal to a to the negative 1. So let's play around with this and make it a positive 1, which is 1 over a, cross multiply, which means a is a 2. Okay, so that is done. Then 5.2.3, they want us to write down the equation of the inverse. So since our equation now is 2 to the x, remember the base is a 2. So which means this is going to be log x base 2. That's our inverse. Then they want us to draw a sketch of the inverse and indicate 2 points that lie on the graph. So what we need to know, I'll use the same graph that they drew for us. So since this point is 1 and 0, which means the point here is going to be 1. No, this was 0 and 1. Then this is going to be 1 and a 0. Then we have negative 1.5. So it's going to reduce to a half and negative 1. So a half is somewhere there, negative 1 is down. So what we want is just the shape, which means the graph should be in this sort of format. Okay, so if the graph is in that format, that's the f of the g inverse. Okay, so is it a g? It's h. So that becomes h inverse. Then read off from your graph for the values of x for which this inverse will be greater than negative 1. So if this was a negative 1, where is the graph greater, which means it's above negative 1. So we see from this point of x, which is a half, when you move to the right, the graph is still above this line of negative 1. So we can just say that x is greater than a half. So that is 5.2.5. Then 5.2.6. 5.2.6. They are telling us that g of x is 100 times 3 to the x. Okay. G of x is 100 times 3 to the x. They want us to find the values of x where h and g are the same. So if h is given as 2 to the x, let's equate that. So 100 times 3 to the x is equal to 2 to the x. So what we can do, divide both sides by 3 to the x, so that x is on one side and then the 100 is also left on the other side. So 100 is equal to 2 to the x over 3 to the x. Let's create one exponent. So 2 over 3 to the x is equal to 100. Let's use the logs. So this is a base. So we can say log base 2 over 3 over 100. I think this is the quickest. Or you can say your x is equal to the log of 100 over the log of 2 over 3. So either way, we should be able to arrive at the same answer. So when I punch that into my calculator, I'm getting x to be negative 11,358, which is 36. Remember, it was 2 decimals. So I'll take that to be my answer for the x. All right, then question 5.3. They're telling us that the price in rands per unit of each item in a consignment of Q items is given by this. Calculate the value of P and then the total cost consignment when it has 1980 units. So let's just substitute that. So it's going to be log 10 plus 1980 divided by 2. So we know that 1980 divided by 2 gives us 990. So this is going to be the log of 990 plus 10, which gives us the log of 1,000. Okay, now, the log in this format, for as long as it doesn't have any base, the base is always a 10. So simplifying this or punching this into the calculator, we know that P automatically becomes a 3. Now, we need to find Q. So for us to get the Q, just get the 3, which is the price per item multiplied by the 1980 items. Okay, so 3 times 1980 gives me 5,940. Okay, it's a 5,940. So that is the cost of that consignment. Okay, then determine the number of items, the consignment when the price is 2 rands. So we need to look for Q. Where there is P, we put a 2. So 2 is equal to the log of 10 plus Q over 2. So we can, remember we said this is a base of 10. So we can express this from the logarithmic format to the exponential format, which is going to give me 10 squared is equal to 10 plus Q over 2. We know that 10 squared is 100. 10 plus Q over 2. When you subtract 10 from 100, that's a 90 is equal to Q over 2. Multiply both sides by 2, which means that Q is 180. So that is how this question 5 would have been approached. Question number 6. Sketch below the graphs. We have this as a straight line, and then that as a hyperbola. Then 6.1, they want us to write the domain. So domain represents the x values, but we're looking for the domain of the hyperbola. So we need to look at this one here, which will represent the asymptote. So which means our asymptote is negative 1. So we're going to say that x is an element of real numbers. X should never be negative 1. So that is the domain. And then 6.2, write down the equations of the asymptotes. So from the hyperbola, we know that x is a negative 1. That's an equation. And then y is equal to 2 will be the other equation of the asymptote. 6.3, without wasting time, calculate the coordinates of D, the point of intersection. So at the point of intersection of 2 graphs, we know that the 2 graphs will be equal to each other. So we just need to solve those 2 equations simultaneously. So I'm going to equate one equation to the other. So it's negative x plus 4 should be equal to 2 over x plus 1 plus 2. Let me move the 2 to that side. So it's going to be negative x plus 2 is equal to 2 over x plus 1. Let's cross multiply. So 2 by 1 is a 2 is equal to negative x plus 2 into x plus 1. We need to open the brackets on the right hand side. So that's going to be negative x squared, negative x plus 2x plus 2. Transpose and create a quadratic. Negative x squared plus x. This 2 and that 2 will cancel. So it's equivalent to 0. Let's take out what is common, which is the negative x. I'll have x plus, is it a plus or minus? It's going to be a minus if I take out a negative. There I'll be left with a minus 1 is equal to 0. Or you can just take out the x alone. So x is going to be a 0 or x is going to be a 1. So x is a 0 is this point A where x is a 0. That's where the two graphs are meeting. And then which means that our point D is the point where x is a 1. Okay. Literally the graph is not to scale, but it could lead us to somewhere there. Then for us to get the y coordinate, just substitute it into one of the two equations. So I'll use the linear equation. So it's going to be negative 1 plus 4, which gives me a 3. So D is a 1 and 3. So that's how we're going to get those coordinates for point D. So that is question number 6. We move on to question number 7. Question number 7. All right, so with question 7, they're telling us that at what annual interest rate, okay, that is compounded quarterly, should a lump sum be invested in it for it to double in 6 years? So we know that our A is going to be 2x, and then our P is going to be x. X is the lump sum, and then the result or the accumulated value, future value will be twice the value. And then our N is a 6. They want us to get I if we are compounding it quarterly. So substituting into the formula, I'll use this side because I need space. So this is 7.1, okay? So it's saying A is equal to P into 1 plus I to the N. So twice X is equal to X into 1 plus I divided by 4 to the exponent of 6 times 4. We're compounding quarterly. Beautiful. So cancel the x out. So we have 2 is equal to 1 plus I over 4 to the exponent of 24. Then we need to find the 24th root. Okay, you press your cube root, remove the 3, replace it with the 24. You get the 24th root. So that we cancel out that exponent. So this gives me 1,0293. Is equal to 1 plus I over 4. Reason as to why we give to 4 decimals is just to get the accuracy right. So you move the 1 that side, it's going to be 0,0293 is equal to I over 4. Multiply both sides by 4, and then multiply by 100. So which means my I is going to be 11.72%. That's if I continue rounding off to 2 decimals. But if you use the whole value, might end up with a 7.4 or 7 something. 7.2, Michaela buys pancha to the value of 10,000 rands. She borrows the money on the 1st of Feb from an institution that charges interest at 9.5% per annum compounded monthly. She agrees to pay installments of 450, and then the loan agreement allows her to start paying equal monthly installments from the 1st of August. Okay, so how much amount is she owing on the 1st of July? On the 1st of July. So we need to know how many months are there between 1st of February and the 1st of July. So those are basically, this is 7, and then that's a 2. So it's basically 5 months. Okay, so we're focusing on 5 months. Then the amount that she borrowed, the 10,000, is going to grow for a period of 5 months before she can start the payments in the 8th month or the 6th month. So you're going to say A is equal to P into 1 plus I to the exponent of N. So that's going to be 10,000 into 1 plus, the interest rate is 9.5% over 12 to the exponent of, we're just going to use 5 since it's already in months. Okay, we don't multiply since it's not in years. All right, so simplifying this, it's a 10,000, not 1,000. Thank you. So that's going to be 10,402, 15. I'll keep it to decimals. So that is 7.2.1. Then how many months will it take this lady to pay back the loan? All right, then when you look at question 7.2, they're asking us how many months will it take Michaela to pay back the loan? So since this is a loan, we're going to use the present value formula. Okay, this is 7.2.2. So with the present value formula, we know that our P will be X into 1 minus 1 plus I to the negative N. Everything is over I. Then from there, we just need to do the substitution. So that's going to be the P value, which we already have. Okay, which is the 10,402.15 is equal to the 450 into 1 minus 1 plus, this is 9.5%. We are compounding monthly to the exponent of negative n. I'm using negative n because I don't want to get the years. I only need the months. And then I'm going to divide this by the interest rate, which is the 9.5% over 12. All right, so let me just put it aside. We're saying P is equal to the X into 1 minus 1 plus I to the negative N over I. So we said 450. This is 10,402.15 into 1 minus 1 plus 9.5% over 12 to the exponent of negative N. This is all over 9.5% over 12. All right, so if I do the transposition and making everything the subject, 10402.15 multiplied by 9.5% over 12, the answer I get, I must divide it by 450. I should end up with 1 minus 1 plus 9.5% over 12 to the negative n. Okay, so do your simplification and then your transposition as well. So if that is done correctly, let's say we move even the 1 to the left. Okay, let's assume we also move the 1 to the left. And then, so 10,402.15 multiplied by 9.5% over 12. You said you're dividing by 450. It's giving me 0, we're having 0.183. This is 1 minus, let me simplify that, 9.5% over 12. I'm getting 1.0079. Let me keep it to 4 decimals. Then when I move the 1 to that side, I'm just going to get 0, 0, 0.817 is equal to the negative of 1.0079 to the negative, and then I can find logs, can take that. So I have the log of 0.817 is equal to n log 1.0079. Divide both sides. So the log of 0.817 over the log of 1.0079. This should give us our answer. All right, 0.817 over the log of 1,0079. Okay, what's happening? Why are we getting a negative answer? Does that make sense? The answer is I'm getting is 25,69 months. Okay. So it's a negative because when we bring this, we shall have a negative n. Then we divide both sides by the negative 1, which means n is 25,69. But why can't I use 4 decimals? 4 decimals, I think it's going to make much more sense, because I need to use that answer of mine in the next question again. 187. Okay, so it's saying the log 0.817 over the log of 1,0079. The 25, let me use 4 decimals just to improve the accuracy. So 685, which is approximately 26 months. Okay, so we're going to take 25 full payments of 450, and then the last payment is going to be less than 450. All right. Then the next question, they want us to calculate the balance of the loan immediately after the 25th payment. So what this means is that if I have 25,685, we subtract the 25 payments, we shall have 0.865, okay, of a payment. So this is going to be our n in the present value formula. So let's look for the present value. Let's look for the present value. We are saying that P is equal to x into 1 minus 1 plus I to the negative n over I. We do the substitution, it's going to be 450 into 1 minus 1 plus 9.5% over 12. Now to the exponent of negative 0.685. Everything is 9.5% over 12. Okay, so this, then that. Okay, so let me punch that into my calculator and determine what my solution would be. 1 plus 9.5% over 12. Say the exponent of negative 0.685. 9.5% over 12. Let me close this bracket on the top. Okay, so that gives us 306,200. So this is what will be left of the payment after the 25 installments or payments that would have been made. So guys, that is question number 7. That's question number 7. Guide for that particular question. Then question 8. Question 8, they want us to differentiate this from first principles. Okay, so you have negative 2x squared. Negative, so this is 8.1. So negative 2x squared plus a 3x. Okay, so we know that the first principles, the formula is given as f of x plus h minus f of x divided by h. So we're gonna have to increase the x's with just the h. So limit as x tends to 0, that's gonna be negative 2 x plus h squared plus 3 into x plus h. We're subtracting the whole of f, which is negative 2x squared plus 3x. We are dividing everything by h. Okay, so we just need to open this up. So limit as h tends to 0, negative 2 into x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. I'll open that up. I have 3x plus 3h. Open that up, minus, no, it's now a plus 2x squared minus 3x. Everything is over h. Then the limit as h tends to 0 is negative 2x squared minus 4xh minus 2h squared. Okay, plus a 3xh plus 3h plus 2x squared minus 3x. Everything is divided by h. Then we just need to cancel out what seems to be common, negative 3 and a positive 3, 2x squared, and this one will go. Then what I have, I can take out the h. So limit as h tends to 0, my h is out. I have a negative 4x minus a 2h plus a 3. Everything is divided by h. Then I'll cancel out the h's. Okay, this h, we'll cancel that h, and then whatever step is left is just the substitution. So with the substitution, we don't need to apply the limits. So it's negative 4x plus 3. That should be our answer. Okay, so that is question 8.1. Let's move on to 8.2. 8.2, what is the question saying? 8.2. So they want us to find f prime of 9 if f is given as this. So step number 1, before we even approach, we need to change this root sign into an exponent. So it's going to be 3 over 2 x squared minus 24x to the positive a half. Okay, exponent a half. And then we know that the first derivative is going to be 3x. Okay, and then a half of that is going to be 12x to the negative a half. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? It should make sense, because that's what I'm getting. Then I can replace x with a 9, so that's going to be 3 times 9 minus 12 over square root of 9. So that's going to be 27 minus 4. Is it minus 4? No. Yeah, it's minus 4 because this is 12 divided by 3, which is a 4. And that gives us a 23. Then 8.3, if we are given ax squared plus b over x as a minimum at least. So let's start with this condition, minimum of that, because we need the values of a and b. So for the minimum, we need to find the first derivative, which is going to be 2ax. Remember, that is x squared plus bx negative 1. So that's going to be minus b, x minus 2. Let's replace x with a 4 and equate this thing to a 0. So that is 2 times 4, which is 8a, minus b, put that one down. 4 squared, that is a 16, is equal to 0. Let's move the b that side, b over 16. Multiply either sides by 16. So we know that 16 times 8, okay, gives us 128. So this is going to be 128a. Then I come to the second condition, that the value of x, or the value of the function at x is this, is that. Okay, so where there is x, I can use now the original expression. So I'll have my 96 is equal to a times 4 squared, which is a 16a, plus a b over 4. But we know that b is 128, so let's do the replacement. So 96 is equal to 16a plus 128a over 4. So we can multiply through by 4 to get rid of the denominator. So we know that 96 times 4 gives us 384 is equal to, that is a 64a plus 128a. Okay, so we know that 128 plus 64 gives me 192. Let me just play around it here and say that I have 192a is equal to 384. Divide both sides by 192. 384 divided by 192, which means a is a 2. Okay, over 192 over 192. So a is a 2. Then for b, I can just go here and say I have my 128 times a 2, which is a 256. So this question is from one of the papers of 2022. Yeah, one of the prelims of 2022 must have been there. Question 9. They're telling us that the graphs g prime of x, hx is given or given as that, and then the g prime is the derivative of the cubic function g. We have these conditions, a is the intercept, and all of that information given to us. They want us to write down the coordinates of E. So we know that E is the y-intercept for the g prime and then the h of x. But we already have the h of x, which is the 2x minus 4. So which means that negative 4 represents the y-intercept. So it's going to be 0 and then negative 4. Then 9.1.2, they want us to get the equation of g prime in this format. So if this is a 0 and negative 4, we have this point and then we have that point. So we can use the intercept format and say a into x minus, let me use plus 2 into x minus 6. Okay, I'll start by finding the value of a using this point where x is 0. So negative 4 is a. So that's going to be 2 into negative 6. Okay, so negative 4 is going to be a into negative 12. Divide both sides by negative 12, which means a is 1 over 3. Then if we try to reopen the brackets, it's going to be x squared minus 6x plus 2x, which is minus 4x. That's minus 12. Open it up. We have 1 over 3x squared minus 4 over 3x minus 4. That's what they wanted. The a, the b, as well as the c. Then they want us to get the x-coordinate of the turning point. So we know that turning point, this dotted line here, since it is the midpoint of the intercepts, we can just get negative 2 plus a 6, you divide by 2. This should give us, what we get there? Must get a 2. We must get a 2. Or you can alternatively use that negative b over 2a from this equation here. You should be able to get the same value. Okay, then write down the x-coordinate of the point of inflection. So with the point of inflection, we just need to find the second derivative. Okay, but it's a 1-mark question, which means it's straightforward. So this turning point here has to be the point of inflection. Okay, so I'm just gonna say x is a 2. You can prove it by finding the second derivative there, which is 2 over 3x minus 4 over 3. Equate that to 0. So 2 over 3x is equal to 4 over 3. Multiply through by 3. 2x is 4, divide through by 2, which means x is a 2. There we go. Then explain why g has a local maximum at negative 2. So we can see that negative 2 is a point where the inverse is cutting the x-axis. So these intercepts represent the turning points. Okay, they represent the turning points of the main function. But now they're telling us this must represent the maximum point. What is the reason? So the reason is that the graph is concave down, okay, between this point and then that point. Because for the graph to be concave down, x must be less than 2. And we can see that in this direction, x is less than 2. So we're going to say that the graph is concave. It's concave down. And then on top of that, we can see that the graph is increasing to the left. Okay. Graph increases to the left. So that is what we would have said under 9.1.5. Then 9.2, if we are given h of x to be 4x cubed plus 5x, substantiate whether it's possible to draw a tangent. So for us to get the tangent, we need the gradient first. And the gradient function is the first derivative. Let's see. Let's try to get the gradient and see. That's going to be 12x squared plus a 5. Okay, so when you look at this, we know that 12 is just a number multiplied by x squared. So if we try to multiply this with a negative number, it's always going to give us a positive result. Okay, so this leads to a positive result. Then positive 5 is just a constant, which is also positive. So which means it's not possible, or we can say that the gradient of this graph can never be negative. Okay, gradient can never be negative because for whichever number that you replace here, any integer you replace for x, the answer is always a positive. Okay, so since the gradient can never be negative, therefore it's not possible. It's not possible to draw the tangent. It's not possible to draw the tangent. So 12x squared plus 5 is greater than 0. So it's not possible. So that is my explanation for 9.2. Question 10. Diagram below shows a plan of a veranda. People call it a porch, which is built onto the corner of a cottage, and then the railing A, B, C, D constructed around the 4 corners. It's given that AB is the same as DE, so which means this is X. BC and CD. BC and CD, which means this is also Y. The length must be 30 meters, which means if we add up all of this from there to there to there up to there, we must get a 30. So let's start by writing down that condition. And x plus y plus x gives us a 30. So which means 2x's plus 2y's should give us a 30. Divide through by 2, x plus y gives us a 15. Make y the subject. We have 15 minus x. There we go. 15 minus x. So if that is true, let's look at the other condition. They're telling us to calculate the values of x and y for which the veranda will have a maximum area. So for us to get the area of this veranda, since it's an irregular shape, we can break it down. Let me use this sort of format so that I have shape 1 and then shape 2. I need to find the area of shape 1. So we know that the length here is x and then this distance is y. So which means our area is going to be xy. Okay, we're saying the area here must be xy. And then if all of this is y, okay, but this distance is x, which means this distance here must be y minus x, but this distance is x. So which means our area here must be x into y minus x. Then we have to add up the two areas. Okay, so area 1 is xy. Area 2 is x into y minus x. Then let's plus the two areas to get the total area. Let me erase this blue. Okay, so xy plus x into y minus x. Let's expand that. It's xy plus xy minus x squared. So this is the total area. Now, we can replace the y's with this. So it's going to be x into 15 minus x plus x into, but why don't I just simplify this thing once, because it's xy and xy, which means it's 2xy's minus x squared. So it's 2x into 15 minus x squared. That's our area. Open this up. That's going to be 30x minus 2x squared minus x squared. Simplifying that further is 30x minus 3x squared. So this is the total area. Then for the area to be maximum, we need to find the a by the x. Okay, find the derivative. So this is going to be 30 minus 6x should be equated to 0. Okay, and if we equate that to 0, I'll move the 6x that side, and then which means my x is going to be a 5. So if x is a 5, I can replace x with a 5 and then get the y. So 15 minus 5, which is a 10. So that is how I would have gone about with that question. Question 11. If we let A and B to be events in a sample space, probability of A 0,4, probability of B 0,7, and then, probability of A or B 0,7, probability of B is K. For what values of K, for what value of K are the events mutually exclusive? So we know that for events to be mutually exclusive, the probability of A and B must be a 0. Okay, then we just have to substitute into that formula of probability of A or B is probability of A plus the probability of B. Okay, we're saying plus the probability of B minus probability of A and B. Write the full formula, and then the substitution should be also done. So that is 0,4 plus K. We say that's a 0. When you move it that side, which means K is a 0,3. Then for us to look at the independent events, it's going to be the same, because with independent, we know that the probability of A and B must be probability of A times the probability of B. So still with the same formula, A or B, it's probability of A plus the probability of B minus the probability of A times the probability of B. Substitution 0,4 plus a K. Remember, we're looking for K. So whatever you got in the first question should not be brought down here. I'm subtracting 0,4 times K. This should give us 0,7. Move the 4 that side, it's going to be 0,3. 1 minus that is going to be 0,6K. Divide both sides by 0,6, which means K is a 0,5. So that is question 11. Then question 12. The data below from a city's police department indicates that all motor vehicles reported stolen, 80% were from syndicates and sold off, 20% were stolen by individuals for personal use. All right, so that is the information we have, and they need a tree diagram. Okay, so with a tree diagram, this is also a past question. It's in one of the past papers. So it's either the car can be stolen by syndicate or it can be stolen by individuals. Probability for syndicate is 80%. I'll change that to decimal, which is 0,8. This needs to be a 0,2. Then if it's syndicate, it can be recovered within, it can be recovered after, or it will never. Within, after, or basically never. Then the probabilities there, they told us is 24, which is 0,24. And then this one is 0,16. And then this is 0,6. This is a 0,38. Okay, say it's 0,38. Then we have a 0,58 and then a 0,04. So that is our tree diagram. So individuals within, individuals after, individuals never. Outcomes and the tree diagram. Okay, then calculate probability if a vehicle is stolen in the city, it would be a syndicate and recovered within. So syndicate and within. So that's going to be 0,8 multiplied by 0,24. So 0,8, 0,8 multiplied by 0,24, I'm getting 0,192. That is 0,192. And if that is correct, we move on to the next one. Probability that is stolen, the city will never be recovered. So there are two scenarios. It will never be recovered if it's with individuals. It can also be never recovered if it was with syndicates. We need to plus those two probabilities. So it's going to be 0,2 multiplied by 0,04 plus 0,8 multiplied by 0,6. We punch this into our calculators. 0.04 plus 0,8 multiplied by 0,6, which is 0,488. Okay. Then 12.2, last one. You have to choose a password for your new Facebook profile. The password must be in this format, where this represents any digits and zeros are not allowed. No? And then this symbol represents any vowels. You may repeat the digits, but you may not repeat the vowels. So first things first, before we even read the question, we know that we're dealing with how many digits? We're dealing with 9 digits since the 0 is out. And then the letters, we're only dealing with 5 since we had only 5 vowels. Let's look at the condition. You may repeat the digit, but you may not repeat the vowel. How many passwords can be created? I'll do this basic format. So we know that in the first case, or for the first number, we have 9 options to choose from. We also have 9 to choose from. We also have 9 since we have 3 digits. And then for the vowels, we shall have 5 to choose from for the first letter. And then we shall have 4 to choose from for the second letter. So that's going to be 9 times 9 times 9 times 5 times 4. I'm getting 1,4,580 passwords. So that is what was meant to be done. Remember, this is just a sample memorandum. Yeah? The memorandum is not yet out, but these are more like possible solutions. If there are any issues, any errors, any mishaps, please can jot them under the comment section, and then we can probably rectify them at a later stage. So that is what might have or should have been done. The paper overall, I would say, was fair. Okay. So as we ponder on what we have here, I just want to wish you guys all the best in your paper too. Thank you very much, and I sign out.